welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're tackling a pretty heavy topic, actually. 10 of America's most, well, stubbornly unsolved mysteries.
Yeah, these are the ones that just stick around, aren't they? The ones people keep talking about.
Exactly. We've pulled together a lot of information, mostly drawing from this really detailed script from Crimecast USA. It's called 10 Unsolved Mysteries That Haunt America.
And that script itself is interesting because it weaves together information from a bunch of places, right? Like 50 strangest unsolved mysteries, unsolved murders, top 10 across America, that kind of thing.
Right, and even some trends from X earlier this year showing how much people are still talking about these.
Which is part of the fascination, isn't it? Why these specific cases?
That's what we want to get into, not just skimming the surface, but really digging into the details, the timelines, why they're still baffling.
Sort of trying to understand the enduring enigma of each one.
Exactly. And the 10 we've picked, they're the big ones. We're talking Zodiac killer, the Black Dahlia murder,
Classic Hollywood mystery.
the Tylenol murders, which had such huge consequences.
Oh, definitely. Changed everything.
John Benet Ramsey, of course.
Very sad one.
Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance.
Legendary.
The Sire children, that weird fire.
So strange.
D.B. Cooper, the skyjacker.
The ultimate daredevil act, maybe.
The Cleveland Torso murders.
Really gruesome.
The Colonial Parkway murders down in Virginia.
Yeah, unsettling pattern there.
And the Long Island serial killer, which is still developing in some way.
Right, even with recent arrests, there are still questions.
It's quite a list. A journey through some really perplexing, dark corners of American history.
Definitely. Where should we start?
Okay, let's start with maybe the most infamous name generator.
Yeah.
The Zodiac killer. That name just screams unsolved terror, doesn't it?
It really does. And what makes Zodiac so disturbing is that mix of just brutal violence and his need to communicate, to taunt.
Right. Northern California, late 1960s. Officially, he killed at least 5 people.
But he claimed 37. That difference alone is part of the mystery. Was he exaggerating, or were there more victims we just don't know about?
And the way he communicated, sending those complex coded messages, the ciphers, to newspapers.
It wasn't just about the killing, it was about the performance, the puzzle.
In one of those puzzles, the big 340 character one, it took until 2020 to crack it. Decades later.
Yeah, quite incredible, but then the message itself.
It was just more boasting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No name, no real clues to who he was.
Yeah.
Arrogance.
Exactly, which must have been incredibly frustrating for law enforcement.
And the scale of that investigation back then. 15,000 interviews. They looked at 2,500 suspects.
Yeah.
Countless tips.
And nothing. No charges ever filed.
It makes you think about the limits they faced. No DNA technology like we have now.
Absolutely. That's a massive factor. Plus, witness memories fade over time. And the source material suggests he was meticulous, planned things carefully.
So he might have been hard to catch even then.
Quite possibly. And it's fascinating that even in 2025, the hashtag Zodiac Killer hashtag was buzzing online. People talking about using AI to solve the remaining ciphers.
That hope just doesn't die, does it? People still think maybe technology can unlock it.
It speaks to the enduring power of the mystery.
Thinking back to his first confirmed attack, December 68, that poor teenage couple in Vallejo, shot.
A terrifying start.
Then the next July, another couple, and the survivor described that hooded costume with the crosshair symbol.
Chilling imagery, instantly iconic in the worst way.
And the letters started arriving almost right away. Taunting letters, he was building his own myth.
Growing the narrative.
Yeah. And even now, you have amateur detectives poring over sketches, analyzing every scrap of evidence. It's kind of amazing dedication.
It is. It keeps the case alive in the public mind.
So here's a question for you listening. Decades have passed. Could the Zodiac still be out there living a normal life? Or did he die taking his secret with him?
It's a deeply unsettling thought, isn't it? That someone could do that and just blend back in.
Yeah. Okay, let's shift gears. Another iconic case, but this one tied to old Hollywood glamour and grit. The Black Dahlia.
Ah, yes. Elizabeth Short. 1947, Los Angeles. A young woman trying to make it as an actress.
Found murdered on January 15th. And the details.
Yeah.
They're brutal. Her body was horribly mutilated, cut in half, drained of blood.
Just horrific. And the press back then,
Yeah.
they latched onto it. Gave her the nickname Black Dahlia.
Which stuck, obviously. The LAPD investigation was huge for the time. Hundreds of tips, maybe 60 suspects considered doctors, actors, even a bellhop, apparently.
And yet, Nothing concrete. Our sources mention a grand jury in 49 listed over 20 potential culprits.
22, yeah. But still, not enough evidence to charge anyone.
And what's really tough with this case is how time seems to have worked against solving it. Key files supposedly lost in the 60s.
That's a huge blow. How do you reinvestigate without the original files?
Exactly. And witnesses, of course, have passed away over the years.
But people are still fascinated. That 2025 podcast, Black Dahlia Unraveled, got massive downloads.
Yeah.
And the X-posts. People debating if it was a serial killer or even a police cover-up.
It shows how it's still embedded in our culture, that mix of Hollywood dreams and this incredibly dark reality.
You can almost picture 1940s LA,
Yeah.
right? The glamour, but also the potential danger, especially for a young woman like Elizabeth Short.
Yeah. And names still get thrown around, like George Hodel, but as the sources say, there's no definitive proof linking him or anyone else.
It's inspired so many movies and books, everyone trying to piece it together.
Definitely left a mark.
So for you listening,
Yeah.
forensic science has come light years since 1947. Could modern tech actually solve this? Find something missed back then? Or is the Black Dahlia's killer lost to history for good?
That's the million-dollar question. Can science overcome degraded evidence, lost files, the sheer passage of time? It's a tall order.
A very tall order. Okay, let's move to a case that fundamentally changed public safety, the Tylenol murders.
1982 Chicago area. This one sent shockwaves across the entire country.
Because it was so random, so terrifying, 7 people died. Just took Tylenol capsules from the store,
Yeah.
and they were laced with cyanide.
Victims ranged from a 12-year-old girl to a young mother. Just everyday people.
The panic was immediate and widespread. People were afraid to take any medication.
And Johnson & Johnson's reaction was huge. Recalling 31 million bottles? That was unprecedented at the time.
The FBI jumped in, chasing, what, 20,000 leads?
Yeah. And a key figure emerged, James Lewis. He sent that extortion letter demanding $1 million to stop the killings.
But, and this is crucial, they never actually linked Lewis to the poisoning itself. He was convicted for the extortion.
Right, but not the murders. And nobody else has ever been charged. The case is still technically open.
Which is kind of mind-boggling after all this time. That Netflix docuseries recently really brought it back into focus for a lot of people.
It did. And it highlighted the lasting impact, not just the fear, but the practical change. Tamper-proof packaging.
Yeah, those seals on bottles. That's because of this case. Something we totally take for granted now.
It's a direct legacy.
But the core mystery remains. Who did it and why? Was it a disgruntled employee? Someone targeting Johnson & Johnson? Or just random terror?
The lack of forensic breakthroughs is the big stumbling block. No clear motive, no definitive evidence trail leading to the person who put the cyanide in those capsules.
So think about this, listening at home. Is it even possible after 40-plus years for a new lead to surface? A deathbed confession, an old piece of evidence re-examined? Or is the Tylenol killer's identity sealed forever?
It feels like one of those cases where, unless something truly unexpected happens, we might never know. The randomness makes it incredibly difficult.
It really does. Okay, let's shift to a case that became a media circus and remains incredibly divisive. JonBenet Ramsey.
A very tragic and disturbing case. Boulder, Colorado, the day after Christmas, 1996.
6-year-old JonBenet, known from child beauty pageants, found strangled in her family's basement, just hours after her mother reported her missing.
The media attention was immediate and intense, and suspicion fell very quickly and very heavily on her parents, John and Patsy, and even her older brother, Burke.
Yeah, the whole situation was just chaotic from the start, wasn't it? There was that strange ransom note found in the house.
Right, which itself raised a lot of questions.
Conflicting theories flying around, and widespread criticism of how the initial crime scene was handled. Many felt it was contaminated.
The Boulder police did put in a lot of effort, thousands of interviews, chasing down tips.
But it wasn't until 2008, 12 years later, that DNA evidence formally cleared the Ramsey family.
A major development, but it didn't solve the crime. No one else has ever been charged. It's still just this tangle of questions.
And people are still arguing about it. That Hulu series in 2024 and the X discussions in 2025, still debating. Was it an intruder, or was it somehow someone inside the house?
The lack of closure keeps fueling that speculation.
It's just heartbreaking. A child murdered on Christmas night, and the family then lives under this cloud of suspicion for years.
Absolutely devastating. And it's generated, what, dozens of true crime specials, books? Everyone has a theory.
But no answers. So the big question now, especially with DNA tech getting better and better, could revisiting the evidence today finally point to the killer? Or is this one destined to remain unsolved?
It's possible. Advances in things like touch DNA analysis might find something missed before, but it depends entirely on the quality and integrity of the original evidence collected.
Right. Always comes back to the evidence.
Ugh.
Okay, let's pivot to a different kind of mystery. A disappearance that's become almost mythical. Jimmy Hoffa.
Ah, Hoffa. The Ultimate Vanishing Act, perhaps.
Yeah.
July 30 in 1975.
Former head of the powerful Teamsters Union. Walks out of a restaurant parking lot in suburban Detroit
Marcus Red Fox restaurant.
and is just never seen again. Poof.
The prevailing theory, pretty much from day one, was a mob hit. He was trying to regain power in the Union, and supposedly certain elements didn't want that.
And the FBI has thrown everything at this, haven't they? Decades of searching.
Tens of thousands of tips, hundreds of searches. They were digging up a field in New Jersey just last year based on a lead.
And still nothing. Nobody.
Nobody, which is key. Without remains, it's incredibly hard to definitively close the case.
Plus, a lot of main suspects, guys like Tony Provenzano, they're long dead now.
Right, so the chance of a confession is pretty much zero.
But the fascination remains. People on X calling it America's greatest mystery in 2025.
It captures the imagination. Theories abound. Was he buried under Giant Stadium, put through a car crusher, incinerated somewhere?
It's become this huge piece of American folklore, inspired movies like The Irishman.
Definitely.
It's just baffling that someone so high profile could disappear so completely.
It really is. That ordinary parking lot setting makes it even stranger.
So for you listening,
Yeah.
What's your theory? Where did Jimmy Hoffa end up? Is he under that field in New Jersey or somewhere else entirely?
The lack of a body just leaves the door wide open for endless speculation. It's become a modern legend.
Okay, from one disappearance to another, but this one is even more heartbreaking maybe. The Sodder children.
Oh, this is a deeply tragic and very strange case. Christmas Eve, 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia.
The Sodder family home catches fire in the middle of the night. The parents, George and Jenny, and 4 of their 10 kids escape.
But 5 children, aged 5 to 14, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, they were seemingly trapped upstairs.
But here's the thing that makes this so weird and haunting. Despite the house burning down, no remains of the 5 children were ever found. None at all.
Which is highly unusual, even in intense fires. Bones usually survive to some degree.
So the family, George and Jenny especially, never believed the kids died in the fire. They were convinced they were kidnapped before the fire or somehow taken during the chaos.
And they clung to that belief for the rest of their lives. There were alleged sightings over the years. The most compelling was maybe a photo sent in 1968, supposedly of their grown-up son, Louis.
But it was never confirmed. The state police looked into it, followed leads, but couldn't find anything definitive.
It just remained this open wound. That A&E special recently, and the online buzz. It keeps the questions alive.
Theories range from, okay, maybe it was the fire, but something very unusual happened to the remains.
Like the fire being hot enough, or maybe the site being disturbed afterwards.
Or the darker theory, that it was deliberate, and arson may be connected to George Sodder's outspoken anti-Mussolini views, and the kids were taken as part of some vendetta.
It's hard to fathom Christmas Eve turning into this lifelong nightmare of uncertainty.
The complete lack of physical evidence of the children is the core puzzle. It just doesn't seem possible.
It challenges our understanding of what happens in a fire.
So for you listening, what do you think happened? Were the Sodder children tragically lost in the blaze, despite the lack of remains? Or did they somehow survive, taken away that night?
It's one of those cases that leaves you with a profound sense of unease and sadness for the family's decades of not knowing.
Absolutely. Okay, let's switch to a case that's less tragic, perhaps, but equally baffling and kind of audacious. D.B. Cooper.
The Daredevil Skyjacker. November 24th, 1971. The day before Thanksgiving.
A man buys a ticket under the name Dan Cooper. The DB came later. Possibly a media mix-up. Boards a Northwest Orient flight.
Flight 305, Portland to Seattle.
Calmly tells a flight attendant he has a bomb. Shows her a briefcase with wires and sticks. His demands: $200,000 in cash-specific bills and 4 parachutes.
Very specific demands. The 4 parachutes part always spark theories. Was he expecting company? Or just trying to imply he wasn't jumping alone?
Good point. They land in Seattle. He gets the money and the chutes, releases the passengers, keeps some crew.
Then orders them to take off again, flying towards Mexico City, low and slow, gear down.
And somewhere over southwestern Washington, in the middle of the night, in freezing rain, he lowers the rear stairs of the Boeing 727 and jumps out. with the money.
and vanishes, never seen again.
The FBI went all out. Thousands of suspects checked. Leads followed everywhere.
But the only concrete thing ever found was about $5,800 of the ransom money discovered by a kid playing on a riverbank in 1980. Degraded, but identifiable.
Which just added more questions. Did it wash down from where he landed? Did he lose some of it? Did he even survive the jump?
Exactly. That recent Discovery Channel documentary and the online chatter, people still love debating this one. Did he make it? Was he an experienced skydiver? Or just lucky? Or unlucky?
The sheer nerve of it is captivating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jumping into that wilderness at night from a plane.
It's incredibly risky. The odds of survival weren't great.
Yet no body, no parachute ever definitively found. He inspired songs, books, became this anti-establishment folk hero to some.
He did. The guy who beat the system.
So what do you think, listening? Did D.B. Cooper pull off the perfect crime, living out his days somewhere warm? Or did the jump, the cold, the wilderness claim him almost immediately?
It's the ultimate cliffhanger, isn't it? The possibility of escape is just so tantalizing. It embodies that fantasy of getting away with it.
It really does. Okay, let's move to something much, much darker. A really grim series of killings from the Depression era, the Cleveland Torso murders.
Yeah, this is a truly horrifying case. Cleveland, Ohio, between roughly 1935 and 1938.
A serial killer the press dubbed the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run.
Kingsbury Run was this impoverished, kind of desolate area near the railroads.
And the killer targeted at least 12 people, maybe more. Their bodies were dismembered, often beheaded, left in pieces around the area.
What's particularly chilling, according to the sources, is the apparent skill involved. The dismemberment was described as precise, almost surgical.
Suggesting the killer had anatomical knowledge. Maybe a doctor, a butcher, someone familiar with dissection.
That was certainly a leading theory. The victims themselves were often marginalized transients, prostitutes, people living on the fringes. Harder to identify, harder to track.
Which might have made it easier for the killer to operate initially without drawing huge attention.
And even Elliot Ness, famous for bringing down Capone, he was Cleveland's public safety director, then he poured resources into catching this guy.
But couldn't solve it. Despite thousands of tips, nobody was ever convicted for these murders.
It's remained one of Cleveland's darkest chapters. That recent podcast, Mad Butcher Mystery, brought it back into the public eye, exploring theories about who the killer might have been.
The image of that city, already struggling through the Depression, being terrorized by these gruesome discoveries, it's nightmare fuel.
Absolutely, an untouchable killer leaving these horrific scenes behind.
So for you listening, think about the time period, the nature of the crimes, the surgical precision. Could modern profiling, maybe combined with historical analysis, offer new insights? Or is the Mad Butcher's identity truly lost to the past?
It's a tough one. The lack of modern forensics at the time, the transient nature of the victims. The trail went cold very quickly and has stayed that way for almost a century.
A chilling thought.
Okay.
Okay, let's move forward in time a bit to the 1980s. Another series of connected yet perplexing crimes, the Colonial Parkway murders.
Right. This happened in southeastern Virginia along the scenic Colonial Parkway and nearby areas between 1986 and 1989.
8 people, mostly young couples looking for a quiet spot, ended up either murdered or vanished completely.
The victims found were typically stabbed or strangled. But frustratingly for investigators, there wasn't always a clear link or consistent motive connecting all the cases. Some were found in their cars, some bodies recovered later, some never found.
The FBI investigated extensively. Again, thousands of leads, maybe 150 suspects considered over the years.
But just like the Cleveland case, no charges ever filed, still officially unsolved.
That investigation discovery series, Parkway Killers, really highlighted the ongoing debate. Was this one serial killer responsible for all 8 deaths? Or were there possibly multiple predators operating in the same area around the same time?
That's the key, Calder. There are similarities, but also differences in the known details of each case, which makes it hard to definitively link them all to one person.
The thought of that beautiful, historic parkway being used as a hunting ground is deeply disturbing, targeting young couples.
It created a real sense of fear in the community at the time and left these families just devastated with no answers.
So, thinking about this one, does it seem more likely to you, listening, that a single, clever serial killer evaded capture? Or could it have been a terrible coincidence, multiple unrelated crimes happening in the same geographic area over a few years? Which scenario seems more plausible?
It's a disturbing question either way. A single elusive killer is terrifying, but the idea of multiple predators operating independently in the same zone is also deeply unsettling. It highlights the challenges when patterns aren't perfectly clear.
A very frustrating puzzle for everyone involved. Okay, finally, let's bring it closer to the present day. The Long Island serial killer, or LISK.
This case has been unfolding for a long time, really came to public attention around 2010, 2011 when remains were discovered near Gilgo Beach on Long Island.
But the timeline stretches back further, potentially to the 1990s. We're talking about at least 10 sets of human remains found, mostly women, many identified as sex workers.
It was a case that baffled investigators for years. Bodies hidden in the dense brush along Ocean Parkway.
Then came the big break in 2023, the arrest of Rex Heuermann, an architect from Long Island. He's been charged with several of the murders.
A huge development, obviously. Years of searching seemed to finally yield a primary suspect.
But, and this is important, he hasn't been charged with all the murders linked to the Gilgo Beach finds, and some victims remain unidentified.
Exactly. So while his arrest is significant, it doesn't necessarily close the entire case. It leaves open the possibility that others might be involved, or that some of the deaths aren't connected to him.
That Hulu docuseries, LISK, Unsolved, explored this complexity. The public interest is still very high, wanting full answers.
Understandably, it's about vulnerable people being targeted, their bodies discarded, the community needs closure, and justice for all the victims.
Heuermann's arrest definitely provided some answers, but the full picture might still be incomplete.
It raises crucial questions about the scope of the case.
So, for you listening, do you think Heuermann's arrest is the key that will eventually unlock the entire mystery? Will more charges follow? Or will parts of the Long Island serial killer story, perhaps involving unidentified victims or other perpetrators, remain unsolved forever?
It's a reminder that even major breakthroughs don't always mean complete resolution. Complex cases can have layers that take years or even decades to fully unravel, if ever. The investigation is still very much ongoing.
Looking back at all 10 of these, Zodiac, Dahlia, Tylenol, John Bonet, Hoffa, Solder Kids, Cooper, Cleveland Torso, Colonial Parkway, LASK, they're all so different, yet united by that lack of resolution.
And time is often the biggest enemy, isn't it? As we've seen in almost every case.
Yeah. Evidence degrades. DNA wasn't a thing for the older cases or wasn't collected properly. Witnesses die or their memories fade. Files get lost, like with the Black Dahlia. Hoffa's body is just gone.
These are fundamental roadblocks that even modern techniques sometimes can't overcome.
But it's fascinating how these specific cases have become part of our cultural fabric. They're more than just crimes.
Absolutely. They inspire movies, books, endless online discussions, Zodiac influencing Dirty Harry, John Bonet fueling the true crime boom, D.B. Cooper becoming this almost mythical figure.
And the public fascination continues, right? We saw with the X trends, the popularity of the docuseries and podcasts we mentioned. People want answers.
There's this persistent hope, maybe fueled by advances in DNA or AI, that something will break open one of these cold cases. But there's also a realism about how difficult it is.
They represent loss, definitely, but also intrigue and that deep human need for things to make sense, for puzzles to be solved.
Nicely.
And we absolutely have to remember the human cost. These aren't just stories. They're tragedies that devastated real people.
That's so important. Grieving families left in limbo, communities shaken, investigators haunted by cases they couldn't crack.
Think of the Solder parents searching their whole lives, the Ramseys living under that horrible scrutiny, the Tylenol families still wanting justice after all these years.
Exploring these mysteries, keeping the stories alive, it's also a way of honoring those victims and acknowledging the enduring pain of their loved ones.
Yeah, it's more than just morbid curiosity. It's about remembering.
It really is. It's about not letting these individuals be forgotten and acknowledging the ongoing quest for answers.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the questions just keep swirling, don't they? For each case.
They really do.
Like with Zodiac. Could the key still be hidden in those ciphers? Something missed.
Or the Black Dahlia, forget DNA for a second, could understanding 1940s Hollywood politics or social circles reveal something?
And Tylenol. If it wasn't Lewis, what other angle hasn't been fully explored? Distribution. Motive.
Jean Bonnet, is there any piece of forensic evidence maybe retested with brand new tech that could finally provide certainty?
Hoffa. Beyond the mob, are there any other credible theories about who he met that day or where he went?
The Solder children. Realistically, what could explain the total absence of remains? Is there any plausible non-fire scenario?
D.B. Cooper. Did he have help on the ground? Was his escape plan more complex than just the jump?
Cleveland's Mad Butcher. Could modern profiling, looking at victimology and the era, paint a clearer picture than Ness could achieve?
The Colonial Parkway? The lingering doubt about one killer versus several? How do you resolve that ambiguity?
And LISK. With Hoyerman arrested, what about the victims not linked to him? Does that point to something bigger or just separate tragedies?
These questions are why these cases endure, isn't it? They challenge us, they frustrate us.
They tap into that fundamental desire to know, to understand, to bring closure where there is none.
Well, if you found diving into these mysteries as gripping as we have, we really hope you'll keep thinking about them, keep exploring.
Yeah, share your thoughts, your theories. Which case resonates most with you?
Let's keep the conversation and the search for understanding going. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.